Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our latest webinar, Crafting Crowd-Pleasing Event Menus, presented by Northstar Meetings Group. Thank you very much to the Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake City for sponsoring today's program. I'm Sarah Braley, also known as Sally, Managing Editor of Northstar Meetings Group. Before we get to the main ingredients of our event, I'd like to introduce Bailey George, Director of Catering Sales for the Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake City, who will tell us about her property. Bailey?
Thank you. I'm excited to speak with you all today about menus that satisfy everyone. First, let's discuss how emphasizing local and seasonal ingredients can elevate your dining experiences and events. At the Grand America, being independently owned gives us the flexibility to prioritize local sourcing. This means we can focus on ingredients that are not only in season, but also of the highest quality, supporting our local farmers and businesses in the process. This commitment isn't just about freshness. It resonates with today's consumers who value sustainability and community support. By using local ingredients, you can enhance not only the taste and nutritional value of the dishes, but it also offers guests an authentic culinary experience, showcasing the unique flavors of the region. Particularly when you host an event with us, whether you're from the local community or visiting for the first time, our dedication to local sourcing ensures that every meal is a true reflection of our commitment to quality and sustainability. Next, I want to highlight how crucial customization is when planning events, particularly when it comes to accommodating diverse dietary needs. At the Grand America, we understand the importance of working closely with planners to tailor menus that cater to specific dietary restrictions and preferences. This isn't just about meeting requirements. It's about creating an inclusive and enjoyable dining experience for all attendees. Our catering and convention team communicates extensively with planners ahead of events to fully grasp and address specific dietary requirements. Our chefs then step in to create customized menus or adapt dishes as necessary, ensuring that everyone can enjoy a safe and exceptional dining experience. It should be a priority to guarantee that every guest, regardless of their dietary needs, receives the same high-quality dining experience. We believe that by embracing customization, we not only meet but exceed the expectations of our guests, ensuring that every event is memorable and enjoyable for everyone involved. Lastly, there should be a focus on going beyond simply serving meals and instead to create unique dining experiences. At the Grand America, we understand that dining is an art form. We firmly believe that you eat with your eyes first, which is why we place a strong emphasis on the presentation of our food, ensuring the food is as remarkable visually as it is in taste. Imagine hosting a farm-to-table dinner where every ingredient showcases the best of the region's produce. Picture action stations that replace standard buffets, allowing guests to engage with their food and experience its freshness firsthand. We also work with you to offer custom menus tailored to specific themes around your event, ensuring that every meal tells a unique story. These personalized touches elevate the dining experience, leaving a lasting impression on your guests. Whether you're planning a corporate event, a wedding, or a special celebration, it is imperative that you work with a venue that is dedicated to helping you craft dining experiences that are not just meals, but memorable moments that your guests will cherish. I appreciate your time and attention. If you would like more information on how the Grand America can assist you in creating menus that satisfy everyone, please feel free to email us at catering@grandamerica.com or give us a call at 801-258-6700. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you again, Bailey, and to the Grand America Hotel for sponsoring us today. I'm here with Tracy Stuckrath, founder of Thrive Meetings and Events and an incredible expert on all things food related for events. And we have brought in as well Ryan Witten, Director of Catering, and Duncan Ward, Executive Chef, both of Bold Catering and Design in Atlanta, and both of whom have very extensive experience in the events world in many different, very interesting places. During our conversation, we will monitor the questions coming in on the fly. So please be sure to put your questions into the Q&A area, not in the chat. because we want to keep the chat open for people to talk about issues or things that come up, and those things disappear very quickly. So put your questions in the Q&A so that I can find them easily, please. So hello, Tracy and Ryan and Duncan. It's so great to have you with us today. I wanted to start just by saying I'm one of the pickiest eaters in the world. Not that I would ever ask for a special meal. I will always go and find something. There's always something for me. But I know there's a lot of people who don't feel that way. And I feel that this is what it's about creating something where everybody feels that when they come to the table, they've been thought of. So how did the meeting planner and the chef get started on a more welcoming menu? Tracy, you want to set us off?
Well, we need to be able to get to the chef. That is, I think, one of the biggest challenges we have. And being able to talk to that chef directly is probably the biggest thing first. We're usually handed the menus by the sales team and the catering manager or the event manager. And so I think getting off on that right foot is asking to talk to the chef personally and directly, because there are so many questions that we have to be able to ask them and to understand what their capabilities are and their team's capabilities. So I think, to me, that's the number one biggest thing first and foremost. And I've been able to chat with chefs. Some are arms back, crossed. Sorry, chef, I'm not talking about you. And backing away from the questions and not really wanting to answer my questions, right? And so it's kind of building a dialogue with them first and foremost to see what they can do and make sure that they're somebody that you want to work with in general.
So Dustin, do you find that more meeting planners are asking you or coming to you directly than in the past?
They definitely come to me a lot more than I've seen in the past. Here, especially, I think it's very important to be on the same page as them, because the more information they have and the more information I have, it's a better event. So I actually visit my sales department every day and do a lap and answer any questions. And I think, and foremost, I think is important is knowing that, one, I'm available, but two, I express to them that if they have a client that seems very particular or knows what they want, to allow me to jump on the phone call with them or meet them in person with them so I can answer the questions right then and there. So instead of let me get back to you or let me find the chef or whatever, I'm already there. I can answer those questions for them at that point.
How important do you find this, Ryan, this change in how people are starting their events, starting to plan them?
With Chef Dustin's point, it's shortening the conversation timeline. You have so many options when you're planning, and it's about building relationships and knowing who's nimble and who can meet the ask, and also knowing what their capabilities are. Sometimes we're not the right caterer for the event, but we want to be able to give them that information as soon as possible. It depends on what they're looking for. And to Chef Dustin's point, it's being available and able to navigate that conversation. And I think on our part, it's asking really great questions. Mm-hmm. What's the actual purpose of the event? How do you want it to feel? If budget is a limiting option, then maybe we can't do everything that is asked for. And one of my favorites is when they say money and budget are not an issue. It's like, sometimes we can go a little too out there. And so it does become something that you need to talk about, but it just shortens the amount of time you have to have a conversation.
So Tracy,
I've had emails back and forth that are 25 things long going back and forth to the CSM. And it's like, let's just cut that time. I'm like, there's 25 questions over the course of 4 weeks. Can I just talk to chef, please? Mm-hmm. Shorten that. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Actually, I'll just throw in a question that came up, which is it okay to request a tasting? Hotels nowadays seem like I am asking for too much when I ask for a tasting for a plated dinner.
No, we love having people come in to do tastings. It's a very big event for the person, and sometimes it's a once-in-a-lifetime engagement that they're doing. So I encourage them. It's a partnership. You're putting a lot of faith and trust into us as the chef to create this magical moment. So by all means, I implore people coming in for tasting, because one, you'll find out what their palate's like, because what's salty to me might not be salty to them, or you learn a lot of things. And sometimes you get that surprise vegan or vegetarian that pops up and you're like, okay, this is what we could do like really quickly for that person. and you get a lot of information, and plus you create a bond with the person. And I think that's very important because I love going to tastings, creating this tasting, then going to their event, and they're like, I remember you. I'm like, of course, I was here with you every step of the way. And it makes them feel at ease.
So that's a good chef.
Yeah, exactly. Now, would you be opposed? I mean, just taking that to another level, like you're doing a tasting of the standard menu. Would you be willing to also give me a tasting of the gluten-free dish or the vegan dish as well? Because I want to know what pains me as a planner is when the whole menu is spelled out on the banquet event order, and then down at the bottom it says 25 vegan, 10 gluten-free, and I don't know what they're getting served.
Oh, we do everything.
And I want to make it you do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, to me, it's everybody's important. And who might be a vegan or gluten-free could be the mother of the bride or the father of the groom. You don't know. And that person's important. If they're coming to that person's event, they're just as important as the bride herself, in my eyes, because it's family to them or a great friend. So I have them taste everything. The gluten-free option, this is what it's going to taste like, dairy-free, whatever allergens that you might have at your event, we'll make sure we have you taste it.
Mm-hmm. That's a couple of people have asked who should pay for the tasting. That seems to be an issue between the client and CSM sales. Ryan, you want to take that? Have you noticed? Do you have an opinion about that?
I think it's not a cut and dry answer that fits every situation. I think that if there is a reasonable amount of items that need to be kind of explored, then I think that the catering company should cover that cost. And we do things as a promo to marketing or to sales. And that's how it's covered as part of we're exploring the contract or the actual sale. But I think that if there's a lot of customer requests and there's multiple things that need to be developed or really high-end specialty ingredients you need to source, then I think maybe it's a conversation of this is something that we can tack on to the end of the bill. But I think really if you're looking to form a partnership or to lock in that special moment for someone or a large event, honestly, it's on us. I think that that's part of our process because also what it does for our team too is it helps to drive research and development. If you put your efforts into something and keep track of it, this is something Chef and I have started doing, is just when we write special menus, we save them into an Outlook folder or into a drive that's shared. And that way, when we go to revamp menus or we're asked for custom things, we're not starting from scratch. We've already spent the time and the money researching those things. Chef actually does a really great job of writing the recipes, even if it's for a one-off, because then we have material. So we can approach it from who's responsible for it, or if it's something that's driving our development, it's just kind of an incurred training cost.
Does it tend to be before or after the contract is signed when you do the tasting? I would feel you would be more inclined to pay for it if you know that they're actually bringing their event to you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we actually honestly do both. I mean, some people sign contracts sight unseen. Other people, they want to know what the experience they're getting. So for us, it doesn't matter if you sign a contract or don't. You're allowed to come in for a tasting. I mean, I personally wouldn't sign anything until I tried a person's food, especially for like a huge event. So I don't expect them to.
Restaurants all the time, though.
True. But I'm not buying it for 2 other people.
There you go.
True. Yeah, exactly. What were you going to ask, Sarah?
I was just going to ask, we're talking about vegan, gluten-free, all of that. One of the things we talked about in our chats beforehand was, the registration form and how even before anything starts, you need to go and have a pile of information ready to give the chef before you even start talking about what the menu is going to be. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that is, as the planner, that's or the organizer, a very important question to ask of all your attendees. And if you get pushback, well, we're not going to ask it or we don't have them, that's baloney, because there are people who have dietary needs and you just don't know. And I actually just had that experience last month with a client. And so it is really important to ask. And I know I've got people on here who've heard me speak before, but food allergies and celiac disease are now covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So when you're asking about people's accessibility needs, you need to be asking that question, food dietary need underneath that, and then ask if they have any other dietary preferences which would include the religious and vegan and vegetarian. And I'm going to say alcohol too. And then and use check boxes, because it makes it a lot clearer for you and for them to be able to say that. But taking that to Ryan and Dustin, taking that knowledge that you have to saying, hey, this is what we've got, and keeping track of what you had in the past. If you don't know yet, when I'm trying to contract, this is what we've had. That historical information is even more important as well, because like, say you had 10 gluten-free and then Ryan comes back and says, Tracy, you had 25 people request gluten-free. You need to know that, right? Going forward, because it might be that person. It was probably chefs that say, hey, that looks really good, Ryan. I want to eat what you're eating. But it is, the registration portion is imperative in asking those questions. And then one of the things that I really push for you to ask is that if they do say they have a food allergy, ask them if that food allergy is triggered by consumption, touch, or inhalation, because it can really make or break how you design your food function. Because you don't want chef cooking shrimp in the air when Dennis or somebody else, one of your attendees, is allergic and that protein can be inhaled by them. Or I just attended an event and somebody was touched to hazelnuts, and there was hazelnuts in a brownie that everybody was eating with their fingers. And so she was really hesitant about touching tables after that. So that's an important question to ask too.
You just never know what it is that's going to be there if somebody hasn't told you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
A great question came in, which is, how can we ensure that the chef doesn't create a one-size-fits-all special entree? Many times the gluten-free meals are made vegetarian or vegan, and that isn't as satisfying for some.
No, I mean, I agree to that. That's part of where that relationship comes from. It's that open communication. A lot of times, if it's just like a dairy allergy or something of that nature, you can leave it out and they can still get the same dish. But I try to get them to have the same dish or the same experience where it looks the same, so they don't feel like one off. But I mean, it's an easy thing to accommodate people where they can get what they want. I mean, if it's just a matter of a couple of ingredients, you're going to have it in hand anyway, so it shouldn't matter.
So, Ryan, you had a great question that you brought up, which was, how can you take the same ingredients and create variety, which also actually plays into making different dishes for vegetarian, vegan, etc.
So one of the things that Chef and I noticed when we started working together is creating variety with more ingredients just for variety's sake is a challenge, especially from an operations standpoint, because then you need a lot of training and you need for people to understand what the original conversation and vision was. And sometimes that gets diluted along the way. So for us, it's kind of taking what we call it almost like here's our standard approach. If we were going to use watermelon and goat cheese for a skewer with like some basil and some sea salt, and that's the standard way that we pass that. So that's the easiest execution for us. And we started talking about using the terminology, let's dress it up and let's dress it down. So dress it up would be, let's get fancy with it. Let's maybe use some liquid nitrogen. Let's freeze dry the goat cheese and call it astronaut goat cheese. So it's more of like a freeze dried ice cream thing. But then your experience is more elegant, same ingredients. And then if you dress it down, it's the same thing, but you're using it as like a buffet salad. So I can use those same components, maybe add some arugula or local bib lettuce to it. And then I'm not having to have a lot of stuff on hand, and it really focuses the approach. Chef Dustin has a really killer vegan risotto. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it vegan or vegetarian with the cashew bechamel?
I can make it either way, but typically it's other menu vegan.
But it's one of those dishes that if we were doing the sunflower and cashew risotto, as long as you don't have a nut allergy, you can make it vegan. And if it's being served next to a similar risotto with scallops on top, chef can take celeriac, cut it, sear it, baste it. So you've got, instead of having something like you said, like the gluten-free one is just the vegetarian, it's just the gluten-free option, and it feels kind of phoned in. It looks the same. It tastes very similar. And it's something where if you put them next to each other, as a meat eater, I might actually prefer the vegan one because I'm like, that's creative, it's substantial, and it's something that kind of has the same ingredients to it, but it's just these little tweaks and changes that make a big difference in how it comes across.
Tracy, How hard is it for the hotels or caterers to offer cards with all the ingredients for the attendees' information? Is it a big ask?
No. Well, I mean, I think it's and I struggle with who should be providing it. Should be the meeting planner providing the card? Can I show a sample, Sally?
Sure, please.
Is it the meeting planner that provides the card, or is it the catering company that provides the card? I mean, it should be given to the attendee. And I think Beth just put this in here too, that she gives a card in the comments section, not the questions, but making sure, because we don't want to have that big scarlet letter across our chest saying, hey, we've got a food allergy. Make it discreet and make it easy for Ryan and Chef to find that person in that group, but make sure we as planners need to make sure the catering team, the hotel sales front of house team knows that the attendees are going to have those cards, right? Mm-hmm. And so that they know what to do with them. And because I've personally experienced, oh, well, what do I do with this card? Right. So we need to make sure that we do it. And it really does help the servers as well. And I want to do one fun thing that I just did at 2 different events. I got an idea off of BizBash, but I took the plastic lanyard name badge that we have, and this was for past hors d'oeuvres. And I made the card say, this is the risotto, scallop risotto. And then I had the allergens underneath it, and the server wore it on their uniform as their badge. And so because most of the time they don't know what they're carrying. And this allows them to communicate it to attendees, especially if your servers don't speak English. Right.
So the ingredients are on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the allergens, like right. It says contains dairy, contains whatever is vegan, vegetarian. And I had servers fighting over the badges. They're like, oh my God, I want to be the sweet tater tot guy. I want to be the risotto person. They loved it. So it helps them communicate better.
So what is the best practice, though, for serving dietary needs? Some hotels put the dietary needs food to one side, but people might miss them. But if they blend it in, the regular participants, I mean, is it really such a bad thing if you make enough for everybody and they just like it or whatever? What's the best way to marry that stuff in so nobody feels like you really don't want them to feel like they've been singled out?
I think for us, at least what we try to do is a couple components. One, I've seen at a few banquets or even hotels where if you had a dietary restriction or an allergy of some sort, you're the last person at the table to be served, where everybody else, they'll skip you and then they'll go to the next person. For us, that's not okay because now you're already putting the scarlet letter on that person and they're just like, okay. So we try to serve them in the same order. And we have a special team that has, like, if it's a severe allergy, they're at a completely different table, and then they meet us at the pass with that person's food. So that way you time up. But it's a very severe allergy. You're definitely in your own little line. But I think that's the main component is, one, that they're not being skipped to go on and wait. And two, it's knowing that they can trust us to keep their health and their body safe. And I think that's a big thing too.
Mm-hmm. Tracy, someone asked what was on the card that you were just showing.
Is it all right if I put my link up there? So it says shellfish seafood allergy. And then I actually have it. These are cards that I designed. And then it has shellfish allergy in Spanish. And then it says, I have a severe life-threatening seafood allergy, or that says seafood. Can't read backwards. And then it says it again in Spanish. And then on the back of it, it says it again, and you can put the person's name and their table number. If there's not a table number, just give it to them and make sure if it's past hors d'oeuvres. But I agree with Chef too, is that if it is somebody that's celiac or it's somebody who has a specific, somebody mentioned a garlic allergy, those have to be personalized plates. I don't like the word special, just personalized plates that are made for that person and handed to them. But I also think that we have to be able to be able to have that person talk directly to Chef to say, hey, how are you doing this? Because there are a lot of people who are still hesitant because they've been glutened or nutted or whatever the word, their allergen has been given to them by mistake, but they want to make sure of the practices. So if we can actually have that additional conversation. I think with Jennifer that said she has severe allergy. I mean, it's labeling the top 9 allergens on the buffet is imperative. And if you have people with any kind of other allergen, go ahead and include that on there too. But know that they might have a bunch of questions and we need to be prepared to answer them.
Part of the thought, though, going into creating a menu that's going to be a crowd pleaser for everyone is perhaps integrating some of these things into an overall meal, right? Into an overall option on the meal that everybody could have a bite of. And do you have any suggestions or particular dishes that have really worked well that way that can be part of the overall menu that will still satisfy some of these troubles?
Well, for the example, the sunflower risotto that Ryan was talking about earlier, that was one of them. That was a component for a steak dish that just kind of turned into its own little entree because it was well loved and well received. That was one of them. Your harissa, what was it? It was a harissa marinated charred cauliflower steak. That was a great addition where a lot of people just enjoy it. Besides that, a lot of eggplant dishes, you can do like eggplant rollantinis that usually go good because you can, one you can start it with like ricotta cheese, but even then, if there's an allergy, you can do like a cashew nut cheese or something like that. So that works out too. So it's just it's just a lot of knowing the ingredients and what can compare to it with the same texture and flavor that you can manipulate it so it has the same effect.
Okay, I'm writing down, don't serve eggplant to Tracy.
You don't like eggplant?
Yeah, no. I don't. Sorry, that's really...
What's the philosophy?
But I'm going to the beach in a few weeks and we all have to make dinner one night and my friend Mark can't have dairy and I don't do gluten and somebody's making lasagna and I said to my best friend, I'm like, well, I'll bring the gluten-free, dairy-free lasagna and I use a cashew cream and he will not know the difference. And I had people who don't have any allergies and eat it and have no idea that that's not ricotta in there. But I do have to say, hey, this is nuts, right? This is cashew. Yeah. This is not nuts that I'm serving it, but it's
made with nuts.
It's made with nuts. It contains nuts. Yes.
So what's the overall philosophy in this sector for buffets? You keep everything that's over on the side, do you?
No, I want you to design them as free of as possible without losing chef's skill set, right? And making sure that they are delicious, right? If you can make an entire dish gluten-free as much as you possibly can. I mean, I just did an event that was completely nut-free, right? And nobody knew the difference. And so for 4 days, I'm like, if you want to go eat a nut or a Snickers bar, go eat it somewhere else. But my event's going to be nut-free. Mm-hmm. But make sure that you're labeling it on the buffet. That's my mantra.
Yeah.
Well, if I can chime in real quick, I think that one thing that's really important from a culinary standpoint is leaning into cuisines and cultures that are vegetable forward. The sauces are more plant and herb based and spice heavy, and oil based. So like Mediterranean, Moroccan, Indian, that kind of stuff, that those cuisines are based on strong flavors, but already stay away from a lot of different allergens. If you ask us to create like a winter, fall French menu, it's going to be a little harder because you're going to want to lean towards butter, puff pastry, and all those things. So I think that from a planning perspective, you just kind of start in that lighter kind of blue zone flavor profile. And then chef does a wonderful job of, if we need to take a component out, just have the conversation around the texture that you need to replace. What's going to be missing? Is it the creaminess? Is it the crunch? And then finding different alternatives that fit within the dietary restrictions you're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Is it worth sending the event menus out to attendees before? Do you do that?
I put them on the event app. Like if you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like if they click lunch, have that PDF come up and the menu is there.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can read that. With the ingredients. I mean, and maybe not the full ingredient list, but that is an easy way to put the full ingredient list if you want it, because you're not having to print it out But I also suggest having a copy of it. Everybody, the chefs on hand or the banquet captain having a full ingredient list on site that they can show off if they or reference.
And Tracy, one thing that helps with as well is not just from an allergen standpoint, but if it's like an all-day meeting that's got breakfast, snack, lunch, all that, it lets people know what's available. We've run into the issue before.
Yeah.
We've done breakfast for 120 people, and the majority of them showed up 10 minutes before the meeting and had already eaten on the way in. So just giving them that information ahead of time, they're like, it's actually provided, and it's something that's more than just an apple and a Nutri-Grain bar.
That's a really good idea. But I don't want that to happen to my group that only eats 50% of my group only eats the lunch and the breakfast because I don't want to pay for them. I'd rather them go out and pay.
There is a question here about both the snacks, interesting snack breaks, and also breakfast, which breakfast always seems to look the same. Does it need to look the same? Are there other suggestions for it?
Why can't you have it?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dustin.
I was going to say, it definitely doesn't have to look the same. And I think there's a place for your typical buffet. That's your scrambled eggs, your bacon, your sausage. I mean, it's comfort food. People love it. It's good. But I mean, there's also, just like Ryan was saying earlier, it's dipping into different cultures and exploring their flavors. But you can do one that's spinach based on the bottom and then poached eggs on top. Or there's a bell pepper and onion masuka that you could be doing. It's playing with different flavors and making it more vibrant in color and playful. And I think that's what also attracts guests to it, because like the lady said earlier, it's you eat with your eyes first. So if you just open up a chafing dish, you just see scrambled eggs, you're like, wow. But you come up to this pan that's full of color and aromas, it's going to increase your appetite right then and there. So I think that's an important thing to play off of.
Mm-hmm. Tracy, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, and I've seen a lot more of the frittatas, the mini frittatas, individualized ones. And okay, Chef, I'm going to ask the question, is that a lot more labor intensive than doing scrambled eggs? And is that going to cost me more to order?
Is it more labor intensive? Yes. Cost wise, it would be around the same. I mean, you're adding nickels to dollars at that point. So if it increases, it's not much. So it's pretty much just like all restaurants. You'll take a hit somewhere, but you'll balance off at the end. And that's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's all going to balance out the same. If I just put spinach or peppers on it, it's okay. Well, it's one less strawberry I'm giving you.
What is the cost balance here of when you're bringing in specialty ingredients to make a different dish to try and satisfy everybody and particular people? What's happening in that?
Well, for us, it actually goes back to what I was just saying. You're going to take a hit on a few things and you're going to make it up somewhere else. So like, let's just throwing it out there. If your food cost is at 22%, there's no way you're going to hit it on a New York strip or a porterhouse, because then I'm charging that person $180 for the thing. So that obviously I'm going to have a higher food cost on that protein, but I'm going to make it up when it comes to the veg or the starch. So when you have your sides, it might be $7 or $8, but really it's for the price of the steak. I'm just going to say it's for the vegetables. So it all balances out at the same, but you're going to make it up somewhere in the menu. But if you charge what you're supposed to just on the protein alone, you're losing. But I remember that, like, for a prime example, when I worked at a prime steakhouse, people used to come in. I sold a 48-ounce porterhouse. I'm like, great, what size did you sell? You know, because I took the hit on the porterhouse. Like, what else did you sell on me? And it's having that balance. And when you write a menu, it's very important to have that balance. And knowing what the client wants, you can create that menu for them. And as a chef, that one, you know what you're cooking, what your labor is, and your cost is on it, it's easier to guide them and know how to get the full experience out of it, but not lose your belt.
And there is a question that has come up about halal and kosher requests, especially when the group is having buffet stations. Suggestions on how to accommodate that request?
Can I answer that?
Please.
Hey, Lisa, my friend, I would pick up the phone and talk to them and ask. And I'm going to give an example that I've used a couple of times now, for a couple of years, is that I had an event during Passover and I had 3 people request kosher. And one was a person who was Orthodox Jew. And so I got that information by calling her and talking to her. And we needed to get that kosher meal for her from a kosher caterer. The other two people asked that, hey, they would eat off of the buffet if we had labeled for the wheat, the pork, the shellfish, the meat, and the dairy, so they could understand what was served in each dish. And so that actually ended up saving my client $2,500 by asking that question, because I only had to buy the meal for that one person. Mm-hmm. And when we clearly worked with the chef to label everything, then those other people were completely satisfied and were very safe. So that's my suggestion on how to do it. And unless you have 50 of them, I think if you have 1 or 2 or 3 of them, it really has saved me a lot of money and headache with that. And then can I address the avocado toast bar over there?
Yes.
Michael Shapiro, Susan Ward, and Michael Shapiro. Michael, I did do a avocado toast bar, and we had one for the gluten-free guests and we had one for the other one. That hotel made too much avocado or too much guacamole, right? It was way too much. So you really have to, like, the gluten-free one should have only been made for like 10 people, right? And then there was the other one, or figuring it out. But chef, how do we get other chefs to not overproduce that avocado? Because I'm like, if you're going to make me order for 200 people, I don't need guacamole for 200
Not
people.
everybody likes avocado.
Right. Oh, now see, you the eggplant, or you the avocado, I'm the eggplant. Yeah.
I won't eat the eggplant either, but that's another story.
Man, I lost both of you. No, for us, we ask them for the guest count and the allergen count. And then if they don't know it or they're afraid to ask, we'll even put on the menu, we'll make up to 5% this way. So if you don't want to give us a number, we'll take 5% of your guest count and make it that way. And then that way it gives them an option, but that way we're not overmaking it. Like you said, you're not going to have 100 people out of 200 that are eating gluten-free. So roughly about 5% of you will.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can add something that actually Amy in the Q&A section brought up a good point. So we do this on our barbecue Sunday station where we've got brisket, sometimes pulled chicken, pulled pork. We'll do barbecue jackfruit for the vegan option, and we do it on request. So we put it on the sign and we let everybody who's the chef attendant know that it's available, but we don't put it out. So people aren't just like, and I'll have some of that, and they're taking it on accident. So keeping it available upon request, make sure that it's not depleted with no reason. And when we've been doing like larger lunch drop-offs, the vegan or vegetarian option, we don't group it with the sides. We actually put it after the proteins. So it's like, here's your starch, your vegetable, your 2 proteins you asked for, and the vegan option is at the end, so that people don't just put it on as a side dish. So I think kind of separating those things out helps to, if I hand you a plate and don't tell you how to interact with the space, does it kind of lead you that direction the right way? That's kind of how we approach it with those service styles.
And I don't know if everybody's following the chat right along. There was a question about a kosher meal that needed to be warmed up, but just the opening of the package made it unkosher. And Tracy, you said
should not have opened it at all because it does make it unkosher. Yeah.
So the person
they need to
eating kosher should open it themselves, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So it should arrive.
A great picture of that. Yeah.
It should arrive then in a way that can be warmed up without having to open.
And usually, like that one that I did in Florida, it came on China. So that could just be taken, and hopefully, I think it did have a plastic lid on it. Or can the wrap be heated up? Can that saran wrap be heated up, chef?
Yep.
On top of that?
It can. Typically, how I've usually seen it is it comes on to China, like you say, and then it has like the dome lid, but then it's wrapped with aluminum foil, and then it has a sticker around it. Like, you're not even allowed to break that seal. You take that whole thing, you put it in the oven, and typically they'll tell you how long you're supposed to heat it up for. Usually it's 7 to 9 minutes from what I've had in the past. You warm it up, and then you bring it out to them that way. But you don't even unwrap the aluminum foil. You don't take any stickers off. You give them a plate of aluminum foil and give them their blessings.
How about historical information before you start the process? Does that help design the menu?
I don't want to use the word guest stalking, but it's guest stalking. It's, you want to inquire about these people, and you create, for me, it's creating those magical moments. So you find out they're from, let's say, Ohio, then you find out what some local treats, and then you kind of sneak them in here or there, or like those flavors. So I definitely love historical events and finding out as much information as I can get. It gives you those nice little magical moments that they don't expect.
And is that reliable, Tracy? You've got, like last time we had 25 people who were vegetarian.
Well, it's going to change with everything, but I think using that as the basis to go forward, because and again, you need to ask every single time, because you may have been, since the last meeting, Sally, you may have been diagnosed with celiac disease, right? Or you may have acquired an allergy to such and such, because adult food allergies are real. Adult onset food allergies are real. So you could have just recently been diagnosed with something, and that number is going to change a little bit one way or the other. But I think using that historical data is a very good starting point for chef to work with. And even getting the consumption reports of your coffee or whatever to say, this is how much we typically serve, that helps them design the menus and how many people actually eat. And knowing that only 50% of my attendees eat at breakfast and lunch I'm like, my CSM was like, well, how can you have 500 people and you're only ordering for 250? I'm like, because I have historical data from 5 years that shows that. Mm-hmm. So that helps them in the long run not overproduce and charge me more money.
Well, and have a lot of food waste as well. Right?
Yeah.
You know, that you have to figure out, can I give this away? Can I compost it? Can I send it to a farm? Whatever you're going to do to try and negate some of that waste. So,
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from the backside, as it were.
Right. Well, Jen Real, any suggestions on how to engage attendees while waiting? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that name. Waiting for a table to be called for lunch buffet. We usually do conferences with 500. So, Jen, are you saying that you say the red tables 1 through 10 can get up to the buffet and go eat, and then tables 10 through 20? Is that what you mean? And how do we engage the people that are sitting and waiting to be called? Can you put that in the chat?
Yeah, that sounds
okay. Do trivia at the table or something.
Have questions at the table where everybody answers for each other that are pertinent to the meeting, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Something that engages the people who are sitting there and helps them get to know each other as well.
Right.
It can also be as simple as Uno, or like little table games that people can play while they're waiting as well. It's a good way to interact that's not work related.
Right. So there was one a little earlier, which was, I was recently told I would need to pay $2 extra per person to add 2 dozen total gluten-free muffins. I thought we had moved to the place where venues include such options as part of the menu pricing. Are these extra charges usual now?
They shouldn't be, in my opinion. I mean, so how do you wrap that in there? Dustin and Ryan.
So I'm going to answer from a newer kind of business side. So for us in like our corporate accounts, honestly, it depends on what the client's preference is. We just restructured the catering menu here, and we don't need as in-depth of a vegan and vegetarian offering. We label everything like gluten-free, nut-free, if it's something that's made without those items. But on that side, it's a client preference. If it's not a big ask, then sometimes there is an additional charge because it's not something we keep on hand. But you can also source different ingredients. Like if I need to have a gluten-free muffin that's available, I just need to have a dry mix that meets that ask. So I'm not holding onto a frozen or a fresh product, and I can just add a few fresh ingredients to it instead of having it be something that I have to physically go out and buy, and give yourself that flexibility. And then from a catering standpoint, I think it goes back to if it's a very custom request for those dietary restrictions, then there usually is going to be a little bit of an additional cost if we have to source either a really specific ingredient or a large quantity of it. And Chef and I ran into this a few months ago, but it was with a specific cut of a short rib they wanted. They wanted like almost like a Flintstone style bone-in short rib. And when we got the pricing from the vendor during the tasting, it was less than when we actually got to the event. And so we learned through that, it's like let's make sure we also cover when is your event and what do the markets trend towards. It's not as much with special dietary needs, but just also being aware that prices do change and fluctuate and having that kind of conversation up front.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to go back to Dustin, go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead. Ladies first.
I was going to say, it goes back to what you said earlier. And like, hey, if you're going to have some gluten-free, you're going to have gluten-free options. You're going to build that into your overall menu cost so that $2 per person should not have to be added on. Am I wrong in that thinking?
No, that's actually where I was going to touch bases on. Goes back to our earlier conversations, getting to know your client, their client, and what they want. And if you know that information leading up to it, it's already built into the menu. Now, if it's like a surprise 2 days prior, hey, actually, I'm going to need like 50 people worth of gluten-free bread, then yeah, there's going to be an additional charge. I mean, for that amount. If it's for 10 people, 12 people, no, it'll be fine. But if it's for a significant amount of guests that's last minute, and we've already based this menu, we've already did the follow-up phone call, the pre-check, and we're all good to go, then it's already built into the cost. It shouldn't be a plus $2 per this person.
And don't let a chef charge you for the toaster, the gluten-free toaster. I'm sorry. I had one chef ask me that. I want to charge my meeting planners for the gluten-free toaster. I call BS on that. Right?
Just now, we'll provide the toaster. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is about creating a crowd-pleasing event menu. So I'd like to know, chefs, if there's a couple of dishes that come to mind that have particularly worked well recently, that have been a little out of the ordinary, perhaps, and something that people haven't seen recently that have worked well at some of your events.
For us, it's about show and having fun. Is you're taking normal ingredients and having fun with it. So we took like a tomahawk steak, which is normally a carving station, whatever, and then we put like a sear saw and we flamethrow it in front of people, and you give them that effect of you're taking a flamethrower to a grilled steak and then now you're carving it to us. So that's usually a crowd pleaser. Liquid nitrogen, just the pure like ooh and ah of that is a huge crowd pleaser I've seen. We do ice creams or rolled ice cream on dried ice. It's just taking unique things that they don't see normally and pairing it with something that they've already had and giving them a whole new outlook on it. That's usually my approach. And I find having like little things to bring them back to their childhood is also very important. So like I'll sneak every once in a while Pop Rocks into something and then, they'll eat it and then they have the popping sensation. They're just like, is this Pop Rocks? I'm like, yes, it is. And it's having those like little playful things that they don't expect happen to them. But it creates that magical moment. So that's what I try to do. It's like, I try to be playful like a kid. That's the whole reason why I got into cooking and being a chef is I love playing with food. So it's just creating something just so fun and loving and just bringing people together and just having them look at you like, yep, it's Pop Rocks.
Anything come to mind for you, Ryan?
And I think that Chef hit it on the head. If you try to meet everybody's specific needs and desires in a large group, then it's hard to actually please the crowd. I think bringing the focus to the fun and bringing it to creativity, and that can be very, very pedestrian and accessible. If it's like a lunch buffet and just if pleasing the crowd is meeting all the dietary restrictions, that's one approach. But I think from a creativity standpoint, it's leaning into, Chef brought up nostalgia as well. Like Pop Rocks is what it is for him. For me, it's breakfast food that's fun. And I don't know why, but that's just really what, brings something that's fun for me. And so one of the things we're doing with our new catering guide is Southern breakfast items, but in a Japanese street food style. Bruschetta station where the action is toasting bread. So you have all of your toppings, but it's like, what are we actually doing? It's not just stirring rice in a pan and serving risotto that you could get at most places. It's not just cutting tenderloin. One thing that we put on our new catering guide is like a whole salt-baked salmon, or what do we do? It's like the chicharron pork belly BLT. So it's basically like a big slab of bacon that we're finishing and we're crisping it. And then it says like seasonal L&T. So it's bacon, lettuce, and tomato, but we have the flexibility. If it's the middle of winter, it's going to be a tomato jam. If it's the middle of summer, it's going to be fresh tomatoes. And I think that the pleasing part of it is meeting just getting it to be exciting and having it be creative. And a lot of what we do is those experiences. It's not just weddings. It's more of like, if this is your corporate event and you planned it, it's important to you because your boss wants it to be successful. You have to stay on budget. And the people who come to it it needs to be something during the day or the experience that makes it really blow away. So I think just leaning into what are we actually focusing on? What's the action and drawing people in with that creativity?
I think we need to take, all of us in the chat need to take the two of you with us to all of our meetings, and then we'll just be fine. Yeah.
We will travel.
Okay. And just as they live in Atlanta. So if you're going to Atlanta, go to Bold. Bold is a good catering.
Yeah, Deanne wants to take us as her event chefs everywhere. I love it.
Yes.
Fair enough. I'm down.
You have your own event chef to take with you. Snack breaks came up again. What are some good ideas for what should be out there, particularly for the afternoon break?
So one thing that I've seen that tracks really well is kind of talked about this with breakfast is smaller portions, really big flavors, but also things that are healthy without feeling healthy. Someone mentioned hummus in the chat as well for snack breaks, and like a hummus platter it's whatever. But if it's hummus that's got some really great olive oil and shug, which is like a pureed kind of roasted pepper sauce, and it's got some paprika, like it looks elegant. It's hummus, but it's got a few pieces of really good charcuterie and maybe a wedge or two of cheese and a few almonds. Like it's what you could buy anywhere, but I think it's the assembly as well. And giving people the option to customize. It doesn't have to be this grand station. It can be like, here are 2 or 3 kind of base plates, but a few things that you can add along with it is I've seen it be really successful.
If I can add to that, I think a lot of it, at least in my eyes, is when you're doing a break, the people have been sitting down all day. They're in a meeting. Their energy level's low. So I try to give them stuff that is natural energy. You have your nuts, your grains. So you could do house-made granola, but you can do it as like huge crackers, and you can cook it yourself, and you can have several different flavors and variations of it. They give them different flavor profiles, texture profiles, but still gives them natural energy. A power bar station where you make your own power bars, and you could do multiple flavors of that. I mean, and you can be playful with it. You have like a donut wall, you could have a Powerball wall. It's just having fun, but knowing that they've been sitting down all day. And you have to give them something that plays around and entices them to keep going for the rest of the day. And hummus is a great one. Let's see, what else? Again, you can play liquid nitrogen into it. You could take liquid nitrogen and dip popcorn into it and then coat it with chocolate or grains from that one. And you're breathing like a dragon, but you're getting energy and having fun while you're doing it. Oh, my snack breaks are the best. I'm a boy who loves to eat.
So thank you again, Tracy, Ryan, and Dustin, for so generously sharing your expertise with us today. And I apologize, Dustin, for calling you the wrong name at the beginning. For our listening audience, if you have any questions you would like to send to one of our panelists, they can be reached at tracy@thrivemeetings.com, D Ward for Dustin Ward at bold-events.com, and R Witten, WHITTEN, at bold-events.com. This webcast will be archived on Northstar's events page at northstarmeetingsgroup.com/events. You can also register there to join us for our next webinar, Creative Sponsorship Ideas for 2024 and Beyond, which will be held July 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern. To download your certificate for attending today, head to northstarmeetingsgroup.com/menus2024. This link will also be emailed to you along with the on-demand link if you want to revisit today's webinar. Thank you again to the Grand America Hotel for sponsoring today's webcast. Thank you, Tracy, Ryan, and Dustin, for your valuable time and expertise. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.